Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Hassan, cult expert, author, mental health professional. And I've been helping people who've been radicalized, recruited into destructive cults for over 45 years. And I thought I would make this video because so many people have been polarized from friends and family and really important people in their life. And this is due in the last 5 years or so to what I believe has been an intensive psychological warfare campaign that has been waged mostly online um, by not only foreign state actors like Russia and China and Iran and North Korea, but as well within America amongst the Christian right, conspiracy folks and prepper folks, and people that I've outlined in my book, The Cult of Trump. So I wanted to go over today some very specific advice about how we can depolarize so many Americans and people around the world, frankly. And the answer is really education, psychoeducation, understanding how the mind works, understanding how undue influence techniques are employed, and developing a real sensitivity to, if it's true, it will stand up to scrutiny rather than a kind of blind obedience to whatever platform you're on or whatever news is being sent by algorithms to you. And it's always important before you try to help someone else to make sure you're grounded, you're sleeping properly, eating properly, exercising, as well as you've done your homework to understand key concepts that myself and other colleagues have been sharing. Concepts like the dual identity model. For example, when I was in the Moonies, the real Steve Hassan got suppressed by the Mooney Steve Hassan. And it was not until my near fatal van crash that, and my deprogramming, that the real me popped out. But then I needed to understand what happened. And I needed to go through a self healing process to understand that key moments, how my mind got hacked, how phobias were installed, etc. So I've developed an influence continuum as well as the BITE model of authoritarian control, which stands for behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control. And with the continuum of ethical to unethical, the more things you can tick off in the BITE, the more destructive it is or authoritarian is. And people have been asking me, especially since the last couple of years with COVID, don't you need to physically be isolated in some compound or ashram in order to be brainwashed? And my answer is no. We actually can be isolated on our computers, on our cell phones. And if we're only tuned into beliefs that are going to verify what our current beliefs happen to be, we're going to be in a lot of trouble in terms of trying to figure out what's true, what's real, who can I trust, and what to do about it. So here's some tips. First, do your homework. Before you try to help other people, understand what the issues are, understand what the differences are between ethical and unethical influence. And you need to get very behavioral and granular in terms of understanding this, like sleep deprivation is a major mind control technique. Well, if you're home on the internet and you binge watching till 3 in the morning, YouTube videos, you're not going to sleep 7 to 9 hours, which is what's required for healthy brain functioning. For example, if you're afraid of taking a vaccination that hundreds of millions of people have taken safely and has helped them survive, if you're afraid that somehow your DNA is going to be changed, you need to reality test it. Furthermore, if you've been believing that there's no such thing as human-induced climate change, check out nasa.gov. Look at all of the satellite images showing the deforestation of the Amazon, the shrinking of all of the polar caps. But we need to use our critical thinking and not just our emotions. And a big error has been with people who love people who've become radicalized or gotten involved with QAnon or one of its derivatives, has been to try to vehemently argue how to, to try to persuade the person to get out, which establishes a control relationship and a I'm right, you're wrong dynamic, rather than a truth-seeking dynamic based on respect and rapport and trust building and such. So after you do your homework, and of course you can read Combating Cult Mind Control and then Freedom of Mind. Those are the two books I would recommend starting. I also did a 3.5-hour online course if you don't prefer to read books, or I also have audiobooks. But realize that the person got radicalized over time, and there was a lot of effort and attention put on them to get them involved. They did not self-radicalize, in my opinion. They were radicalized online by individuals and bots that were targeting them specifically. But it's going to take effort to help them to get out. And if you're not in a space where you can help other people because you're traumatized or get triggered too easily, don't try to help another person. Just stay safe, okay? But I'm reaching out and telling all those people who want to do something, they just need to be understanding what's going to be effective. And I hope this video will pique your interest and get you interested in learning more. I have some 200 videos up on my YouTube channel, books, and a lot of great blogs. And when you're interacting with somebody, let's say they're, a Trump, still believe that Trump is the president and that Biden did a coup and there needs to be a violent overthrow of the government, don't immediately argue. Just be like, help me to understand how you understand this, and give it to me in bite-sized pieces, because often my experience is that true believers will do a fire hose of propaganda at you and send you 40 links and then say, do your own research, air quotes, which means get indoctrinated by watching hours and hours and hours of these fallacious videos. But really understand where the person's coming from. Are they feeling that they need a community? Are they feeling like they're so afraid of the future? Are they a religious person and they think Armageddon is coming? What's going on with them is critical. And you got to build rapport and trust with them. And if you've known this person your whole life, talk about positive early memories, share videos, share photos, talk about neutral, positive things, music you love, dancing, trips you've gone on. So find topics that aren't going to be polarizing to start off with and seek common ground. And then when you're actually engaging with them, this will be somewhat controversial for some people, but if you can pretend you're an impartial therapist where you just want to listen and understand your client and not judge them and not try to correct your client, try to use that idea that you're there to just be there with the person, let them know that you value them and want to help them. Curiosity, respect, repeating back to them what you heard them say, asking if it's correct is really good. Great listening skills is a big bonus. And always try to connect with their authentic identity, who they were before they got in. So when I'm asked to counsel people involved with destructive cults or get into rabbit hole conspiracy theories, I always try to, once rapport and trust is develop, I try to ask them, when did you first hear about QAnon? And get them to remember who they were prior to the first recruitment experience or first video that they saw, and help them remember what their life goals were and their values, and then ask them to walk you slowly through the steps that were persuasive, and ask them to share it with you, and ask them if they'd be willing to watch it, if it's a video, with you, and just keep hitting the pause button and say, can you explain what that means? Or, or it sounded to me like they just did a switch from one thing to another topic without any foundation, or they were making appeals to authority that were not valid. So the number one technique for helping is asking a good question in a respectful, curious tone and approach, and waiting patiently, being silent while the person thinks. And then when they respond, engaging with that and following up. Can you tell me more? Or can you explain how that works? Or what do you think now, especially if the person's been involved for 5 or 6 years? What did you believe was going to happen when you first got involved? Now it's 6 years later. If you had known at the beginning things would turn out this way, do you think you ever would have started down that road or going to that introductory meeting? And it's a very good question because it makes people think. And that's the whole goal of my approach. It's fine to share your own feelings, just avoid making judgments. So when you say that, it makes me feel sad, or when you say that, it makes me feel confused, versus what you just said is BS and a lot of gobbledygook or something like that, which is pejorative and condescending and will definitely not help build rapport and trust. And make your goal understanding versus persuading them or winning. It's really important. Do your best not to tell them anything as if you know the truth. Frame things as, this is my understanding based on my sources. If you have a different understanding, share what your understanding is and what your sources are. And let's compare what stands up to scrutiny. So again, it's a truth-seeking frame. And be careful about trying to go faster than they're ready to go, because I tell all my clients that our biggest ally in helping de-radicalize someone is the person's authentic self. And I also say that love is stronger than mind control. Why? Because when you're in a mind control cult, they'll only love you if you believe what they want you to believe and do what they want you to do. Whereas authentic love, they love you, you love a person no matter what, due to their beings, and you don't stop loving them if their mind has been hacked, by a foreign entity or a destructive cult. Don't rush to try to do interventions. Try to promote perspective taking. And what I mean by that is that when one is in a mind control cult or relationship, one is convinced one isn't, and one is convinced everyone else may be, but not you. But if you can find out from them what groups they do think are mind control cults and what works best with people who were Trump followers, was talking about Chinese communist brainwashing, and then getting into Lifton's 8 deadly sins, or his 8 criteria of thought reform or brainwashing, and talking about pimps or traffickers. They'll be very receptive to learning. If you frame it, you can pique their interest and curiosity and start teaching them how to evaluate brainwashing and mind control. It's very, very powerful. And then once they understand that, you might ask them to watch a video about Rajneesh, or about Nexium, or about the Moonies, or whatever, and ask their opinion, and better yet, watch it with them. getting them to see that people in another cult look at your involvement as crazy and cultish and mind control, while you think they are. And the cure to blind faith is perspective, stepping back and trying to learn the big picture of things. Um, yeah. So learning about techniques of how the mind can be hacked, social psychology, the models of brainwashing and mind control that I've written about in my books and on my course and in my doctoral dissertation. And just be patient and loving and kind and stay in touch. Hey, I miss you. Thinking of you. How are you? Emojis, sending a song that you know they used to love, or if you used to love it together. And again, memories of places you've traveled together. These are the kinds of things that will help reduce the polarization that people are experiencing. And we've got to get out of this black and white, all or nothing binary where people are thinking of the other as the enemy or as Satan. And there are many people who are very spiritual and religious who still believe that Biden did a coup and that Trump is the proper president now in 2021. And so it's critical, to be able to understand where their sources of information are, and that if you want to help them, calling them names, saying they're crazy, saying it, they're following a conspiracy theory, makes them deeper involved. And likewise, it's really interesting, but there are people on the left politically who are authoritarian, who are doing cancel culture and are saying, we've got to fight fire with fire. And they're reducing themselves to that plane of what's going to make more polarization. So we need to have hope. We need to get all good people with good intentions together. We need to develop strategic plans. And my message is start at home, think globally, but act locally. And if you happen to be a former member of any type of controlling relationship or company or religious cult or trafficked or whatever, and you feel comfortable sharing your story with people that you know, please do. And consider getting involved with the hashtag movement I Got Out. There's a website, igotout.org, if you are a former member, and start listening to other people's experiences. Because if you're a former member too, there are going to be parallels. They're going to pop up when you're hearing other former members of mind control cults talking. And it's going to help you feel less vulnerable, less isolated, more of a community of not only survivors, but thrivers. Because for me, my life is really great. I'm so grateful my family helped me out and didn't just fall into some of the errant beliefs like, well, he's an adult, or he says he's happy, or it's his religious freedom, to be in the Moonies. Wait a minute. Let's challenge those points. Anyway, I really want this message to be uplifting and instructional. I hope this works for you. Thanks very much. Bye.